Hi. Today let's talk about should you get legal advice from your banker? So, smart people know what they don't know. So, basically you don't want to be a know-it-all. Now, the smarter people, they surround themselves with people who are smarter than them. So, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room, right? And you know, the smartest people, they know who are the right people to surround themselves with. So let's talk about a couple of examples of these. So in terms of knowing what you don't know, Google, I mean, that's kind of an age old adage, I guess. Maybe not. Maybe the past century. I don't know. But Google has kind of taken a kibosh to that because Google is like the ultimate breeder of know it alls. Number one, don't get me wrong. So you can definitely improve yourself and learn like so many amazing things by using a search engine, by using Google. But if you think, if you have the mindset, if your life approach is that you can replace the years of experience and just life work of another individual with a 5 to 10 minute Google search, you probably have had a kind of difficult life and maybe run into a lot of tough situations. And there's so many examples of this, not just with law, which what I talk about a lot in finance, but medicine. Have you ever tried to diagnose yourself on WebMD and just been totally off? I'm sure. Yeah. And even things that are less, life or death or less serious, but also have consequences like plumbing or home repair. I'm sure you may have tried at some point to fix a pipe or hang a door or do something with the help of Google or YouTube or whatever. Yeah, only to realize after the fact that maybe the advice you got didn't quite cover everything. And if you had been a little bit more experienced, you wouldn't have this hole in your wall or this, water damage to your floor from plumbing damage, right? Something along those lines. So that's not to say that we won't get there. I mean, Google and just AI and machine learning, all these things are really, really doing great things. And the progress is amazing. And a really good example of that is radiology, for example. So this is in the field of medicine, and that's why I'm choosing this example. But in the past, and I guess even to this day, you'd have to go to an expert radiologist, right? Somebody with years and years of experience to read, to analyze your X-ray, MRI, or what have you, because you needed somebody with that built-in knowledge to really understand what's going on this image, what's this gray spot. I don't really know what they do, but and so forth. But with all the advances in AI and machine learning, um, that's slowly changing where instead of relying on individuals to analyze each scan or image, right? The images, with high speed scanning and I guess image recognition, can go through databases that kind of represent the minds of hundreds, thousands, even millions of highly trained radiologists, and sort of has uploaded their experience and knowledge to a cloud or to a database that can process the analysis of these images at just exponential speeds. I hope that makes sense. I'm kind of went off on a tangent there. Bottom line is, yeah, we're definitely getting there, but we're not there yet, right? And it's really only the high impact or high stakes situations, like life and death radiology, where money is being really pumped in, because who wants to pay? Sorry, I have a lot of friends who are radiologists, so who wants to pay all these radiologists all these high salaries when replacement value could be huge for the hospitals? Yeah? Okay, so let's establish some ground rules of when you shouldn't rely just on Google, right? So this is like a sort of a life lesson. Okay, if you would have asked the person in lieu of doing a Google search, think back 5, 10, 15 years ago, whatever, and you would only listen to this person and he'd only be credible to you if he had years of experience, then maybe Google is not the solution for your situation. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you two examples. So if if you're asking about a divorce, right, which can have huge impacts on the rest of your life, and you need a divorce attorney or something along those lines, you probably want to ask your questions to somebody who's done more than one divorce. You want to ask your question to not your friend who got divorced once, but rather to an attorney or somebody who has the experience of having done this many, many, many times. Because versus there might be situations where somebody, like a restaurant recommendation, right? If somebody went to a restaurant and ate there once and had a fabulous experience, that might be enough. That might be enough for you to decide to go to that restaurant and well. And the second point ties into this is, number one, do you need the person to be, in order for the person to be credible, do they need many, many years of experience, many iterations? And number two, what's the downside? If bad advice could potentially lead to severe and irreversible consequences, then you're more likely to want an experienced opinion. So even if you're getting the advice of somebody who's been to a restaurant once or somebody who's been divorced once, if it's a situation where the downside is not that big, so you have a bad meal, big deal, then yeah, Google should be fine. But if the downside is you don't get the alimony you deserve, you don't get custody of your child, if you, if using the divorce example, if the downside is huge, then yeah, don't just Google it and pretend like you know it and think that you know it all. Just get somebody who is credibly experienced in helping you through a big stakes situation. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think we all agree. Yeah, all right. So, you don't want to get advice from the wrong person. So, okay, we've established that in certain situations, you need to ask somebody live, somebody who's had experience. Now, the next question is, who do you ask? Like, who is the right person? And I want to start by talking about who's the wrong person. So this whole topic was spurred by the experiences of several of my clients, and one came in recently. And this just happens all the time. And it's quite frustrating, where clients, who have had a relative who passed away and they need to close down a bank account or something at a bank, they go in and they're getting all this advice from the bankers. The bankers are telling this, okay, all right, let's use Richard, for example. Okay, Richard, thank you for coming in. We'd love to help you with your mom's checking account. Here's what we need from you. We need you to collect X, Y, and Z. One of those will require you to pay a lot of money to a translator. One of those will require you to possibly go to your mom's home country in the Caribbean. That's time and flight and expense. And once you bring those back to us, we should be able to open close or cut you a check from your mom's account. This kind of thing happens all the time. So Richard, he sees a very professional looking, well-dressed banker in a reputable institution, and says, okay, thank goodness, thank my lucky stars, I've met this really kind and helpful banker who's going to save me from paying, like a blood-sucking lawyer. Oh gosh, this is my lucky day. So he spends the next several weeks or maybe even months complying with this checklist that the banker has given him. And he comes back and says, okay, phew, it was a little bit of an ordeal, but thanks to you, at least I didn't pay that lawyer. Nobody likes a lawyer, right? Here's the translation and the court documents. Okay, may I have my mom's check, please? But guess what? The banker kind of didn't know what they were talking about. And you're starting over from scratch. Like, oh, actually, I just called my back office, and you actually need to do X, Y, and Z in as well, and then come on back and we'll cut you that check. All right, so Richard's a little frustrated, like, he should have told me this. I could have done some of these things all at once, but again, at least I'm not paying a lawyer, so I'm going to listen to you because you're super nice, you're well-dressed, and you're in a reputable building, bank. And Richard goes out and does all those things, takes another couple of weeks, another couple of months, costs a little more money. But when he gets back, friendly banker is no longer there because she's moved on to a different bank or is now an actress or a real estate broker or whatever. And Richard goes to another banker and says, hey, here's all the things that other lady told me to get. Can I please have my mom's check now? And the new banker's like, I don't know what that lady was talking about. That's all wrong. Here's a list, A, B, and C, that you need to do. When you bring that back, I'll cut you the check. I know that it probably, you might be saying, oh, come on, you're just making up this absurdly entangled, exaggerated story. This happens all the time. And clients call us ready to tear somebody's head off. Because, yeah, I mean, who wants to get bounced around like a ping pong ball right after you're mourning your mom's passing or whichever loved one you're dealing with, and you're just trying to get an account closed? I mean, it feels like it should be a lot easier than this, yeah? So this is an example where, just huge wasted time and money. And actually, in an even worse case scenario, we had a couple of cases where the bankers advised Richard, let's call him, to set up an estate in the Caribbean country courts, which was actually a huge mistake. And what they were supposed to do was do it in New York. So not only did they waste money doing like hiring a lawyer down there that didn't was completely unnecessary. By doing that, it made the New York court procedure a lot more difficult and more expensive. So it would, it was just like we talked about earlier, huge irreversible consequences by not speaking to the right person, by not getting advice from the right source, from the right person, right? And I don't mean to pick on bankers. I mean, in all of these instances, I completely believe that the bankers were trying their best to help Richard, and they thought they were giving the best, the best advice to their knowledge. It's just wasn't really their place. And this is not just the bankers. CPAs giving legal advice, immigration attorneys giving business formation advice. This kind of stuff happens all the time. You just gotta make sure you're asking the right person. It doesn't mean the nicest person. It doesn't mean the most professional looking person necessarily. You need to ask the person who's, again, credible and experienced in what you're asking about, right? Makes sense. Yeah. All right. So let's talk next about, all right, let's go over some tips on how you go about meeting the right, or knowing which is the right person to ask. So what I want to acknowledge is, yes, it's super hard to find the right person. So if I'm Richard, right, and my mom passed away, and I have this really nice, really professional looking person at the bank right in front of me, basically customer serving me, like offering to help me, that's super tempting. I get it. Because who wants to jump on Google and start searching for an attorney and calling 5 different numbers, waiting for callbacks from 3 of them maybe, and then playing phone tag with 2 of them to finally get in touch with the paralegal for 1 of them? I know, I get it. It can be frustrating. So what you want to do is you want your life to be systematized. You want your life approach to be on a sort of daily basis systematized, so that you're constantly meeting and connecting with smart people, smart, reliable people, so that when that need arises, you kind of know somebody, or you know who to ask to get to that somebody, if that makes sense. Yeah. So there's really 3 ways to go about this. First, you just want to be constantly meeting people. It's kind of a numbers game. I mean, like all of humanity, there's like a percentage of folks who are not particularly useful in any way. You want to kind of stay away from those folks. There's a percentage of folks who, basically you want to just meet as many people as possible to get to those few at the bottom of the funnel who are super useful in their respective fields, right? So it's a numbers game. You want to just meet as many people as possible. Try to meet them in real life, not just on social media. People are different on social media. People lie, exaggerate, boast. I mean, come on, you've been there, right? You know what we're talking about. And another good way, so meet in real life and just be active, both socially and in business. So Meetup is an app that I use a lot I actually use it to play soccer, pick up soccer. I love it. I've met a lot of great people there. So we obviously have a shared interest and a shared personality trait of some sort. That's one way to meet people, your own social circles. Also, be active business-wise. One of the reasons I love being an executor, and there's a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is because I'm constantly doing things. I'm working with tax accountants. I'm doing real estate deals. I'm closing bank accounts. I'm doing these things all the time. So I'm constantly meeting new people and conducting new transactions or microtransactions. I'm just constantly learning how the world is working at this given day and age, right? So we really do I really do feel like I have my finger on the pulse of personal finance in general because of that. So that's just sort of my spiel, but maybe in some way your work or your volunteer work somehow allows you to be more involved with more transactions and interact with more people, and you'll be exposed to more potentially smart people. Then, so that's first step, meeting more people. Second step is you got to develop a good people radar. I don't really have a good tip on this. So just because you're meeting a lot of people, how do you discern which are the ones who are kind of smart or useful? I guess 2 things to look out for. Look for people who stay in their circle, meaning their circle of competence, from a la Warren Buffett. You don't want people who kind of seem to think they know a lot about everything. I mean, just going back to the know-it-all thing. Those people, those folks can sometimes be dangerous. And if it feels like I'm talking about you, sorry, it's just my 2 cents, right? And you want people who are strong listeners. if you observe a conversation, the guy who's quiet or not talking so much and listening, just I mean active listening, not passively can't jam their way in the conversation, but really listening and trying to learn from what the other person is saying. That's the person I want to get to know a little better, right? So those are two sort of, because active listeners are active learners, right? And active talkers are, I don't know. I guess they think they're teaching. I don't know. It depends. And you gotta read the situation. But those are two tips on how to suss out who's worth who might be a good candidate for somebody to work with in the future. And then lastly, once you've ID'd or gotten to know some of these really sharp folks, you got to stay in touch. And in this day and age, it's super easy. Social media, the professional or business platform is LinkedIn. If you're not on it, you really should get on it. And that's a great way to stay in touch with people and what they're doing business-wise, what they're doing financially, and so forth. And again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about being an executor. Just be active. Get into a lot of deals. Get into a lot of situations, because there's no better way to evaluate somebody's competence than by seeing how they conduct themselves in a deal, in their work, right? Somebody might be a really great, in my example, soccer player, right? Really great passer, sees the field well, nice touch. But that doesn't tell me if he's good at renewable finance deals. Shout out to Mike. Or if he's good at a real estate broker, whatever the case may be. So doing deals with them or talking with them in a work context will really sort of shed light on whether or not, hey, this is somebody I should really turn to when I have important personal or self-involved questions on those topics. All right. So bottom line, should you get your legal advice from a banker? I think we agree, probably not. Maybe in some situations it does work out nicely, but long term you will probably have some problems. And just more generally, make sure you're getting advice from the right people. All right. Hope you got some useful tips out of this one, and talk again next time. Take care.